Donnie, it's Graham, how's it going? Cool, man. Watching your video on this Messerschmitt. And listen, if you need some help with the welding and fixing up that bodywork, I'm your guy. I mean, if you need me to help. Donnie? Donnie? Donnie?
Graham, I need your help.
This is your little Messerschmitt.
Just then.
Okay, so as you can tell from the title of this video and obviously the intro, Danie is busy building this little Messerschmitt, and I'm going to be honest, up until the point I saw his videos, I never knew that this thing actually existed. This is the back portion, and what we're struggling with here is quite bad rust. So we wanted to weld that up, but even on the very, very lowest setting of my welder, it ain't happening. It's just burning all the way through, basically immediately. So Danie has gone to, and it looks way worse than what it is. This is not me burning like that. This is where we cleaned off to be able to weld. That's the actual welding there. Just burns right through the metal. So Danie has gone to go and buy a piece of metal so that we can cut this out and replace it with a fresh piece of metal, because this center portion is just too fatigued. Okay, so with careful welding, which is probably going to take many hours, and then some really talented body work, as Danie is clearly capable of, I think we will fill up these holes. But with the amount of holes that we're dealing with here, it just doesn't make sense. It makes way more sense just to cut out the bigger piece and rather weld around the corners over here, which is going to be a challenge in itself, because obviously we don't want to put too much heat into the metal. But yeah, I just wanted to see if this is actually possible. This is sort of what we end up with. Really not all that bad. All these holes are covered. Let me show you the back side. So they are properly covered. We'll need to grind this back obviously to make it pretty. But Danie is quite talented as from a body point of view, spray painting and bodywork point of view. He will easily get this looking really nice. The thing is this, the amount of hours that it's going to take to finish all of this just actually does not make sense. So while it's possible, it's going to make a hell of a lot more sense just to replace that piece of metal altogether. So Danie has gone to go and get us a piece of metal, and we'll catch up when he's back. So this is now where Danie is well more talented than what I am in shaping metal. Again, I will link his channel downstairs. He's doing some amazing work with this little Messerschmitt at the moment. Got me all excited about my Lotus 7s again. And Danie, that's now obviously to get the curvature of what we're trying to weld into here, so that...
Yeah. Well, luckily, it seems like this isn't a compound bow, so we can just by hand manipulate this piece of plate into position. It's only curving in this direction and not in two directions. Otherwise, we would have had to use more tools like hammers and doilies, but we can just manipulate this one by hand so that it can get the curvature that we're looking for on this panel.
A few minutes later.
Earlier you saw us measuring out the size of the bit that we had to cut. And what we did there is we took the absolute minimum amount of metal that we could remove to make sure that we actually get to the first piece of viable metal that we can actually weld to. Now what we're doing is we're cutting this piece
as large as we possibly can so that it fits into the hole that we left as tight as possible to ensure that we've got the least amount of gap to weld up when we get to welding a little bit later.
So what Danie did now is he cut the metal slightly bigger than the hole that we're looking for, so that we can rather trim it down to make it fit. Just that's nearly perfect, eh?
Okay.
That's nearly perfect. You know what we can do now, Danie, is we can tack it in. Well, I need to clean it first, but we can tack it in and then get the shape perfect before we weld it. What do you think?
Good.
Some magnets? Well, let's clean that off first and then...
Alright, let's do that. Let's go longer.
Clean up the edge there also.
I wouldn't give any effort, man.
Danie, that looks really cool, eh? I mean, that's just about where we want it. And what we can do now is we can give it a couple of tack welds.
Manipulate it into position.
Yeah, and then, but you cut it beautifully. I mean, look at that. That's almost no gap.
Great stuff. Okay, Graham.
Let's do
All
it.
yours.
Right, so our panel is in place. Now I can maybe go for the corners. Trying to leave you as little body work as possible. Danie, this is looking good.
I like it, man. I like it.
And that is solid metal. No issues with that. Yes, but you cut this nicely.
I think this is gonna solve my problem. That's for sure.
Definitely. Well, let's start welding. So Danie, you'll notice with an arc welder, typically we start the weld, we get the arc, and then we pull the weld as we go. With the MIG welder, we start the arc and we push the puddle up the weld as we go. So it's a little bit different from what you might be used to. So what I'm also doing, Danie, is I'm welding there and there and there and there, so as to try and distribute the heat as much as we can. The original metal here is really, really thin, but the nice metal that you brought us really helps. The temptation to grind in one spot is great, but again we want to distribute the heat as much as we possibly can. And I know my mate Jan is going to have a lot to say about me using a grinder. We want these welds to disappear. We're not supposed to see them at all.
Guys, look at that. This is how you fix a panel that has been rusted away. Basically what Graham did was he just cut out the rusted part and put a new plate in there, welded it up, and all I need to do is just manipulate it a little bit with my hand doily and just sand down the welds a little bit more so that it will disappear. But guys, this is how it's done. It is welded up, it is nice and strong. This plate will never go anywhere. So guys, this just goes to show that with the right tools and some skills, and sometimes with the help of a friend, you can fix any type of problem on your project. Thanks Graham, I really appreciate it. This really has helped me a lot. I'm just going to go home now. I'm going to finish this part up.
Nice, this was fun. Thanks for involving me. Always remember that life is too short to drive boring cars.